Jason.
Hi.
Set it up for me.
Yeah, that'll work.
But everything checked. I mean, everything that's supposed to be in the book is
The
there.
records show this side of the room well represented.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
See?
Everyone had a
So
safe
far,
and
it's great.
prosperous, and Santa Claus didn't leave you any cold.
Nope.
He skipped to our house and landed at the grandkids, so that's a good thing, I guess. So let me start off by reading the purpose statement for the Citizens Advisory Committee. Primary objective of the CAC is to ensure the capital maintenance and public transportation projects and programs approved by the voters during the November 2nd, 2004 and November 6, 2012 elections are accomplished with PPRTA funds. This committee reports directly to the Board of Directors. Any challenges to or comments on?
For one of them.
All right. We do have a quorum, and all alternates can vote. What do you got?
Public comment?
Oh, yeah, when I get to that. All right, do I hear approval of the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, agenda is approved as is. The next order of business is selection officers for 2017. So I will turn it over to Rick.
So the bylaws call for 3 officers for the CAC, the chair, the first vice chair, and the second vice chair, and these are for calendar year basis, or terms, 1-year terms for the calendar year. So I will open the floor for nominations for chair. Yes, ma'am.
I nominate Jim Godfrey. Ain't broke, don't fix it.
Second.
Okay. Before we close the nominations, are there any other nominations?
Move nominations be closed.
Second.
Okay.
Call for the question.
Okay, all in favor of reappointing to the chair Jim Godfrey, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Jim, you're it. Now you get to handle the first vice chair and second vice chair.
Thank you. I serve at the pleasure of the committee. I appreciate your vote of confidence. So let's go to first vice chair. So any nominations for first vice chair or self-nominations? Reb has indicated he is willing to continue serving as first vice chair.
I nominate Reb.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any other nominations for first vice chair?
But Reb's got to use the microphone.
Although,
We haven't Never mind.
He says, then I don't want it. Right.
all those in favor of Reb for first vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so congratulations, Reb. For second vice chair, any nominations or self-nominations for first vice chair? Second vice chair, sorry. We have a nomination for Tom Viersma.
Nomination for John Luke.
I'll second that.
Second, both of them or one of them?
You can't
For Tom? Okay. And do we have a second for Joan?
I'll second Jones then, so
I didn't hear your name.
So, Joan,
What was the other name? I didn't hear her.
Could we get the names of the motions and seconders for each of the
Who-
two?
I made the motion.
Reb,
Okay, Reb,
Yeah, but
on Tom,
There
and the
was
second
another
was Tom.
okay.
And Dr. Knoll made the nomination, and Ed Dills the second.
Okay.
They both have to give speeches now.
How long is their speech? You're going to restrict it?
Very short.
No, that's okay.
Is it over yet?
So Rick's going to pass out a couple pieces of paper. We'll just do the secret ballot versus.
who was the other candidate I didn't hear?
Both of you.
Oh,
We could just have them arm wrestle. They're right there together.
there you go.
Wait a minute, I think I paid you both to serve.
Actually, I think we need to see the result of this before we vote.
He didn't have me at the right angle.
Are we voting for a chair and a vice chair?
No, we already
Just
did.
the chair.
A second and a half chair.
Second and a half
Second and a
chair.
half chair.
I'm assuming you both want.
Well, yes,
No, seriously.
yes,
You're both willing to do it.
yes. Besides, I don't need any more fools.
Oh, sure.
You turn the Wi-Fi off so we don't get any Russian hacking of the vote.
Use the word password as your password.
Was on his email. Password.
Here we go.
Probably something stupid.
Whose email was
Russia?
Rick, that's
Oh,
good.
password was
Here we
his
go.
password.
Yeah.
Did anybody notice on their back, somebody said they'd give $5,000 for me to vote for them? You see that on there? Yeah.
Jim, your check's coming later.
Heck, I would have been happy with a bottle of whiskey.
Password.
Password, how brilliant.
It took the Russians to figure that out. Sure. Either that or a high school kid.
It's like being the disaster quarterback, second vice chair.
That would be an odd number.
Odd, did you say?
Well, prime.
Oh,
Prime number. Well, 11 is a prime number.
Math major.
Yeah, there you go.
Then again,
I
so
don't
is
know, I
2.
think I need a
So,
teller.
then again, so is 2, and I don't think 2 would work in this case.
Yeah. So while they're counting those quick votes, let's just jump on to the next one and open it up for public comments. Tom, you had something?
Yeah, as some of you all know, I work with Marion House Catholic Charities downtown for donations for what we call clients, poor and homeless, that kind of thing. And I get all kinds of things donated. It's really weird. So this morning I went out to pick up some stuff, and I got 4,000 candy canes, and they're all in the car.
You're welcome.
And so if anybody, and so I talked to them, and I said, what the heck are we going to do with 4,000 candy canes? And they said, we'll put them out for the clients to come in. They can just take a box of 12 if they want. So I said, well, 4,000? They said, well, if you know anybody else. So I thought, I know some people who are nuts enough. If anybody wants a box to take home, see me. I've got a car full. 4,000.
What group is this with?
I can see
Group
the
is this with that
sign.
you get donations?
Marion House Catholic
Okay.
Charities downtown on Bijou, 7
Yeah.
Bijou.
Oh,
I can see the
can't we
sign
just put
out
a
there.
for sale sign in front of your car?
Oh, they sell the car, not the...
Tom, I can see a sign up at Voyager Parkway and Briargate now, candy canes for sale, and
Well, I also got 300 rolls
Support
of
of Marion House.
brand-new Christmas wrapping.
oh,
I said, what in the world are we going to do with Christmas wrapping? And they said, we don't know, but if you want them, you can have them. And I didn't. So there's a group called, I work with West Side Cares, with a whole bunch of
Oh,
them.
yeah.
Been doing this for about 5 years. Wife's worked for them for 9 years. And so anyhow, a group called Christmas Unlimited. And we called them, and they're taking all the Christmas wrapping.
Cool.
That's good.
I heard there was a great Santa Claus down there on the 24th this year.
Our place at Marion House?
He was just awesome.
Wasn't me this time. Oh, was you? Good. Isn't that neat? If
Oh,
you all
pat
haven't
yourself
done
on the
it
back.
For this, I did Air Force Academy 2 years, and that is
That is
such a
fun.
reward. It's unbelievable.
Nice.
That is so cool. Names
Those
I
kids
couldn't
get so
pronounce.
excited about
I had one lady standing behind me pronouncing the
Whispering
names
it
in
in
my
your ear.
ear, so I could, oh, hi, Methuselah, whatever.
What's his name?
Oh, what's your name? Yeah.
Santa would know.
A little old for that, wasn't it?
all right, Dr.
So
Nolan.
anyhow, you can see me
I
afterwards.
think, I ought to put a serious motion for the following, that all these years, we should give somebody a new first name and call him Rory Rogers.
Oh,
No, they call me Wally.
You guys are slow this morning. I thought you chronologically gifted guys would immediately think of that. He didn't come in here on trigger, but
I do all the Walmart stores in town also,
is that right?
and so my nickname's Wally.
Wally, okay.
Okay.
All right, let's jump back to the results of the second vice chair.
You guys can have some too.
The majority vote was for Tom Viersba.
Tom Vieira. So welcome, Tom. Thank you.
Is there a
Congratulations.
challenge with recon?
Yeah, I want to make sure it wasn't hacked.
What now?
I want some counsel.
I need a safe space.
All right. So now back to public comments. Anything else from the members or for the audience? Rick, you have one.
I have two, actually.
Thought I did this already.
We've received official notice that Reb is now a CAC representative from the town of Green Mountain Falls, and thus his little name card has that on that. So Reb is now from Green Mountain Falls.
He wasn't before.
No, I am not from Green Mountain Falls. I'm just representing. I've been there, done that.
And
Older streets.
Joan is representing the town of Rama, and we have that official notification.
Somebody passed through.
Who's doing Rama?
Me.
A little far out.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Yes.
What kind of motorcycle did you buy?
Okay.
None.
Pony Express.
And my other announcement, I just wanted to personally advise you of what you've probably seen in the newspaper, that the PPACG Board of Directors, not PPRTA, but the PPACG Board of Directors voted on December 22nd in the afternoon to suspend with pay 3 PPACG staff members, Rob McDonald, the Executive Director, Beverly Majewski, the PPRTA Finance Manager, and Craig Casper, the Manager of the Transportation Department, pending the board completing an investigation of various activities of those 3, and then they potentially, this is the PPACG board, next Wednesday morning, potentially will make some decisions regarding 1, 2, or all 3 of those staff members a week from today in the morning.
And you are acting director.
Yes, thank you so much.
In addition to that.
Congratulations.
And they named me as acting executive director of PPACG, which is the whole building. So I can take questions, but I probably can't. I don't have much more to share on that, but I'll be glad to take questions.
If we have a bunch of secret stuff about you, can we tell everybody?
Sure.
Dare we ask what brought this on?
I don't know, so I can't speculate, so I can't answer that question, sorry.
Process play.
Investigation is ongoing.
Yeah, let's just leave it at that. We just want to make sure that in case you didn't see the article, you were aware of what was going on.
Do we
Nope.
still have a newspaper in this town?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's online now.
All right. Any other public comments? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the December 7th regular meeting? Tom?
Second.
Ed? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Approval of the minutes. Maybe I should ask if anyone read them. You know what you're approving. Okay, financial reports. Mr. Executive Director.
Who's not near as cute?
I'm not keeping up.
So you might as well just stand there.
Okay, they're in your packet, and on the first page after the cover sheet, we had an extra $681,000 from the October results, from the check from the Department of Revenue, sales tax, sales and use tax. We will receive the November receipts Monday or Tuesday of next week, but this is what we have so far, with a trend of about $3.9 million ahead of budget, which was probably going to beg a maybe an early or a second mid-year budget amendment to add revenue.
Okay.
I'll be glad to take any questions and try to answer them.
Any questions on the financial report, information only?
This is one where we-
Good news is all indicators that it's going to continue through December, so that's a good note. All right, thank you. Rick, do you want to kick off the capital renewal project revision?
Might as well just stay there.
Yeah, I'm not anticipating. I'm behind the curve here. So several months ago, the CAC began the discussion of leading to a potential policy regarding how much information the CAC and the board would like to see on capital, this is PPRTA 2, capital project cost estimate increases. So when something was listed in the 2012 ballot and the dollar figure which was not in the ballot, but let's just take, for example, if a project that was shown to the board in the fall of 2012 as a $1 million project is now a $1.5 million project or a $2 million project, or if it's just $1.1 million, are there increments of increase where you want to see more information? So that issue is there an upward ladder or scale of increments of inflationary impacts on the PPRTA capital projects where you want to see increased degrees of detail of explanation about why each capital project went up?
And for clarity, we're really basically talking about total project cost, not a projected one single fiscal year over multi-years. Or are we talking about in a given year?
No, we're just talking about
Total
Project X that was presented to the board in the fall of 2012, again, not on the ballot, but if Project X was $1 million, then it's now estimated by the member government to be $1.5 million. How much detail of an explanation for that extra $500,000 do you want to see?
Right. Okay.
I have two questions. Or, I don't know, grammatic correction. Page 2, second red line item. As needed to help ensure pay this project. And the same thing on page 3. I need a second. I read that 3 times and trying to figure out what it said.
Oh, yeah, I see where that's at.
So you have two versions in here. You have the December version that you've previously seen. That's the second attachment. And then the first attachment's from Mike, and he's here. And the red line is Mike's offering of changes, since this has not gone to the board, or it's not been approved by the board yet, so we're still in discussion. So Reb, were you on the January 4 memo?
No, I was on,
Yes. No.
no, it's the revision with Mike.
The policy 26, or?
Well, it's both. It's a policy, and if you go to the page just prior to it, they are both words the same.
Okay.
It's just a typo.
Oh, okay. Mike, are you okay?
As needed to help. Yeah, I got it.
What was it?
It just reads, the funding split be adjusted on a yearly basis between member entities as needed, and he's inserting the word to help ensure completion of a list project. The word to
That's fine.
is,
And it's done on
yeah,
both
it's
that
on
and the
both
policy.
sides. Okay. So Mike, you want to just talk to us about your,
Okay, yes, Mike Chavis, Colorado Springs Engineering. We had this come up last month, and I think for the most part, we're okay with there was two parts. There was kind of some description of if we, make sure that we come back and explain this is an increase to the total project or not. And then the other part was, part 4, there was 4 segments of some percentage increases. So I had a few comments or concerns. First of all, we've been talking about that we know there's been a pretty good amount of construction inflation. So if we applied those 20 to 40 and over 40 to the ballot estimates, we're going to be explaining in detail to almost all of them. So a suggestion I thought was on the RTA, the A-list name projects, that we baseline them 28%, and I came up with that based on CDOT's quarterly cost increases. They did kind of a rolling average from 2012 to the second quarter of 2016, and it's about 28%. So what my thought is that we baseline the costs at this increased amount and use your 20 to 40 and over 40 on those numbers. And that way, pretty much everything will have a preliminary explanation. Hey, most of this is because of cost increases. Then if they're above the 20, we go into it. We would still need to come and approve any increase from the ballot number, even though we baseline them higher. So we'd say, hey, we want to increase this one, and here's why. So that was one thought I thought would help keep this a little more simplified as far as explaining it.
Excuse me, Jennifer, you had mentioned something earlier about updating all of your projects and taking a cost look at them. Do you have any problem with that as well, or how do you feel about that? Just do them one at a time.
Well, I guess I'll just speak to this rather than maybe that. I think your question is what is my concern here? Because from my perspective, I prefer. We just have so much going on, and it really is based upon design when we're actually updating our costs. I don't think it really helps me to go back and update a bunch of costs without any design work done. So I prefer not to do that. So that's number one answer to your question. Second of all, I would just note that the cost increase over the ballot cost, there's no cost on the ballot. There were estimates prepared. So I'm not sure it really makes sense to reflect it as ballot cost. But then it goes on to say, however, any cost increase will be identified and explained. And so I guess from my perspective, I'm not sure it really helps or hurts us to index these dollar amounts. I know, Mike has, a good proposal to try to not have us explain those, but then it goes on to say that we'll do that anyway. So, if I have to come before you and, from my perspective, it makes sense anytime we're asking for an increase over that original budget we should be coming forward to tell you whether it's related to a construction cost increase or not. It may be a myriad of different issues. So from what this says, we have to do it anyway, whether there's the construction cost increase or not. So, from that perspective, I'm not sure it makes sense to have to go back and index and do a bunch of work.
Would it make sense that we not go through the drill of re-indexing projects, but as you get to those projects and you're bringing them forward for consideration, that 28% is just part of your explanation versus having to go through all the drill?
Yeah, and then a year from now, it may be 31%, and 2 years from now, it may be 35%, or it might have, goes up and down. So, I don't know. If I have to come to you and tell you that my project budget is increasing, we're going to say that, and a lot of it may be due to the fact of the construction cost index. So,
Tom?
Once we get a number that lands on our budget, is that a number we deal with, or is that a number from the ballot?
You mean like in a 2017 budget?
When we look at our budget here, and there's actually a number associated with a project, is that the number that we're then saying is baseline 28% higher now? Or are we saying that the original number on the ballot is what we were?
When you put your budget in, are those revised numbers from the ballot?
Well, no, we need to go based on the expected revenue that we get from, from BEV. And so there's two things. Now, I guess, to address Jennifer's comments, I guess the reason I was thinking the indexing would help is if we come to you, or if we just handle a project as it gets in design and we have an idea that it's going to be more expensive, we'll come and explain that. But from a planning, especially years out, if we just stick with the original number and, we divide that over the years, and what happens is, like, I had a Centennial it was quite a bit higher, about $4 million over the $8 million originally. So then I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I fund this? And, I'm moving projects out in the future. And then West Colorado came in, and that one we had to find $12 million, and, the city had to find $8 million. So that's really creating some issues for me, trying to figure out, how do I, pull $8 million over 2 years to fund that, because I also know my other projects are going to be higher. So my thought of the indexing was, it doesn't inflate the budgets, but it gives me a planning number of, okay, how, this is really what I'm going to have to find next year, and in 2 years these projects come online, and my numbers are hopefully a little closer to what they really are. So that was the idea of indexing it to help plan out in short and long term. But like I said, that was just an idea that I threw out there. Jennifer's right. Either way, we got to come back and ask for more money and explain the projects as they actually become active year to year.
All right, so when you submitted your when you guys submitted your 2017 budget, were the cost of the projects that you included in that budget, were they revised costs based on your current design status, or were they the baseline ballot cost measures?
They were the baseline.
Okay, so you have a project in your budget that you are reasonably 90+% sure that the number in your budget is not right, because it was a 2012 or a 2011
Yes.
estimate.
Mm-hmm.
So
like
you're already going to be short and not be able to accomplish all of the 2017 projects because the project total cost is 100% wrong right now.
Well, I wouldn't say we're not going to be able to accomplish it, but it's going to be a challenge. As an example, the Pikes Peak reconstruction is in there for $8.6 million, and we're thinking it's going to be more like 13. So I haven't asked formal permission to up that. So I've just spread out over the next couple of years 8, 6, and then when we actually get a bid is when we'll have to see, where do I pull money from? Do I push one of our projects out? Postpone one? Do we tap into reserves? That's something we haven't addressed yet.
Tom, did you have Tom?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You had a question?
Well, I was just, what you said, if our budget is disconnected from reality, then it's an academic exercise of no value to anybody.
Right.
So those need to be real numbers. If you know that the number is wrong, then you need to tell us that the number is wrong, because we're budgeting money based on this list.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, in Pikes Peak, as when we actually get a hard number at that point, and I've already prepped my project manager, you start looking to where and how we can cut. And, on Pikes Peak, that one's a little simpler, because if push comes to shove, we can shorten the length of the project. There's a third of it that's not as bad as the rest of it. The issue comes when you got a bridge. Well, you can't leave a third of a bridge out. So that's why the bridge projects, we've been asking for increased funding. But on the roadway ones, we are starting to look at where can we cut, what can we do, is there any other supplemental funding to help out? So you're all right, Tom. They are good numbers, and we have to work to the budget that we have approved, and if we can't, we'll come back and ask for more.
I guess, just a second, I want to just continue this thought, I'll come back. I don't necessarily know that I agree with that. You know, if you've got a 2011 or 2012 project cost that was really wild-ass guess in some cases, best engineering estimate of a project, and now 4 years later, you're putting a project in your budget to execute, it would just seem to me that in the process of the budget formulation, you would have taken some steps to update that budget so the number in your budget somewhat reflects a better estimate than it did in 12. May not be the final, but
Yeah.
it's certainly the estimate. So that when you submit your budget with 25 projects in it for $25 million, that in reality, you're only going to be able to get 20 projects for that $25 million because you're going to have to slide them out. And so your budget really is not, it doesn't reflect your expected current expenditures. It's just a paper exercise listing what is moving forward from 2012 when you're moving it forward. So it really doesn't reflect what you intend to do in that fiscal year.
Well, there's two things. We did address it in the first round of RTA projects with budget adjustments year to year. We expected revenues to go up, and we would bump them up, kind of indexing. But it wasn't just an index. We actually bumped the projected cost. This round of RTA, we've been more, let's take it more case by case. The other thing is we've been able to, or at least I've been able to kind of keep things on track within the budget because we have, we had the 75% done in the first 7 years, and what's happening now is a couple of projects have bumped out into years 7, 8, and 9. So we still can do the projects that we have identified with the money we have, but we've bumped the actual budget. Centennial went up, Chestnut went up quite a bit. So that was handled partially by pushing some stuff out, and then we had a little bit of excess revenue. It's just getting to the point where, we can't keep doing that. Especially with Colorado Avenue, that was a big number for us and the county, and so that, at least on our side of being able to kind of, tweak and adjust, kind of hit a wall because that.
Well, I'm certainly not advocating, and I've made this very clear from the beginning, and I'll say it again. I am very sensitive to the workloads of the staff, and I'm not trying for this committee to impose a lot of additional work for the sake of the committee. That is not at all where I'm headed with this, with the whole idea.
Yeah, and that's why, because I know Jennifer and I also realize that, if we were to look at our projects and go through an exercise, that's going to take some time and money, and we don't necessarily have time. That's why I was thinking maybe if we did some kind of indexing, and also that 28 is, we could either do none or maybe some variation of that. But I just thought that would help us get a better idea of maybe where these things are headed without a whole lot of work put into it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick. In RTA 1, you just went and applied an inflationary number across the board to all projects, and then that was a rebaselining, if you will, and that became the new number. Is that am I generally
We
right?
did that for some years, and it's on the spreadsheet.
Not towards the end, but quite a number of years, probably 6 or 7 of the first years, and then it went to 0 for the last 3, just from vague memory.
Right. Okay.
I have the the August of 12 baseline numbers that were presented to the board, again, not in the ballot, if you'd like to see them.
All right. Well, hold that just a minute.
Okay.
Joan, you were first, and then Dr. Null.
Excuse me. When I'm looking at the baseline projections at 28%, while I can see that 20% may be a little too low, I'm not real comfortable with the 28%, but would be more comfortable at something, say, 25%.
Well, 28 like an index, like the inflationary index that construction stuff use, or other things, they use the front range, what they call the front range factor, or something that's in the Denver, Boulder, Greeley inflation thing, and it's quantifiable and it's consistent, and that tends to be what people use. So if, in this case, for construction and road construction project, if CDOT is using that, it's something that is similar in nature to the kind of work that we're doing, and at least it's consistent. So arbitrarily choosing a number in between that's not quantifiable, now that 28 could change. That's just my initial response, was having something that is known and quantifiable and that is used in the construction industry by other folks seems reasonable to me. Whether that, how, not knowing the formula and how they do that, I don't know whether 28's right or wrong, but if that is in fact their published inflation factor that they use, then that sounds reasonable to me, but it's up to everybody else. But who else? Dr. Knoll, do you have a comment?
Yeah, this is troublesome to me. It seems to me the reason we hear the projected cost ahead of time is let us know how the money's going to be spent. Well, the barn door isn't closed, the cattle can run out, and then you close the barn door. So I don't know what us knowing the projected project cost means if it isn't consistent with what was approved. There's no way for us to tell, did we approve $26,000 or 26? We can go back in the records and look. It seems to me a better way to budget your money is to bring budget increase proposals, which I thought we did in the past, to the board and tell us this is a problem, we need to increase the budget. But to give a blank check ahead of time, I think is a mistake.
Well, it's not a blank check, as I said. I'm not saying we're going to.
Well,
we're
that's
just,
my
we're just,
word. That's
And
my
the only reason I want to index this was because basically the percentages that you propose, I'm looking at keeping, but pretty much everything is going to be in the 40 or above.
Because of the construction inflationary
Yeah.
index, everything would automatically bump into the higher percentage stuff when it's a very simple explanation of that. And I think that that's not the intent. So I understand where you're going. I just wanted to clarify what we were talking about. Tony, and then
Do we know approximately where we are on money coming in as a percentage over what we originally projected as well? Because I know that those are every year a little higher as well because of the increase in the economy.
as of right now, we're running about 7.5% roughly, or is that the monthly?
I think that's just for the year. The
Year-to-date?
gross, back in 2012,
5.2.
the model that was developed, and Kathleen Krager, I'm sure remember this and can correct me if I'm wrong, we were assuming 69 million gross revenue,
Okay.
flat for the entire 10 years of the second PPRTA 2.
Okay, so
69 million flat, and we're now at 89 with an effective 4 million over that, so we're effectively at 93. So
we're almost
93,
50% over our
93
projected
divided by
income.
69, whatever that is,
Okay.
is our margin of extra revenue over the original model.
So if our revenue is 50% over the projected when we put this together, and the costs are 28% over the projected when we put this together, I don't see a problem with adjusting the baseline. That doesn't seem irrational to me when both sides are going up. And luckily, the revenue is going up faster than the costs. So.
Hi, Kathleen Krager, City Traffic. I just wanted to explain when we did the budget analysis for the second PPRTA, our assumption was, well, we'd been through the first PPRTA and it included the worst recession that we've had since the Great Depression. So why not assume the money that we took in the first PPRTA will be the exact same as the second PPRTA, and then we won't be caught in the position where we're not taking in enough money to handle the budget. And then we set the A list for 70% of that so that we had 75, thank you, so that we had a chance to get to some things on the B list. But along with that theory was the theory that, yes, you can have inflation with construction, but that usually trends at the same time as increased spending in things that are involved in sales tax. So, and that's what we saw in the first PPRTA, is that we had inflation with construction, but we had an increase in revenue. And that's what you're seeing right now, is that we're having a pretty decent increase in revenue, and it's sort of going along with the higher cost we're having for construction. And it's, to be truthful, we went along in PPRTA 1 and really never had much of this discussion, and we just haphazardly got to the end of it and went, oh, okay, that's done, and it worked. And I think we're sort of trending the same way here. It might be helpful when we set up our budget for the year, if we already know that a project is going to exceed what was in the original ballot budget. It seems to me you could put an asterisk budget number on that and explain why that's exceeding or that type of thing. Or each year in December, we could agree upon an index number that we apply to all of our projects based on what the nationwide index number is, so that these numbers look a little closer to what we're really going to spend on these. But your revenue is going to look different as well.
And to Mike's comment about, we can reduce the scope, if
Yes.
we're having the revenue trend the way it's trending, and we see that is a fairly consistent trend over the, beyond the first year or so, and begin to see that going up, it just doesn't make sense to de-scope a project.
Not want to reduce the scope on everything, because if you do, you're going to have people that said, I voted on this on the ballot, and then, a great example is we reduced the scope on Mark Shuffle a great deal in the north, and I've got tons of people now on Mark Shuffle going, wait, this was on the ballot, this was promised, and I got nothing.
But
So-
if we don't do everything like printers, for instance, if we don't do that, you're going to come back 2 or 3 years later and have to do the rest of it, or you're going to, because you didn't do it all 100%, you're going to have to redo it or add. So it just doesn't make, as long as we
Yeah.
have the revenue, and the revenue's trend is going, it just doesn't make sense to me to de-scope something, and
And
that's the reason.
There are times when you can look at best value engineering and de-scope something without reducing the actual length of a project. For example, maybe we have estimated a project using a 12-foot trail next to the roadway, and a 10-foot concrete trail would be just as good, and you save money in that area, or you go with this kind of curb and gutter instead of this kind of, there's lots of ways to save money on a project. I'm not saying we shouldn't ever do those things, but reducing the length, you're right, you do end up with people going, why didn't I get my fair share?
Right. Reb had one comment. All this is good discussion. Jennifer, you want, go ahead. Go ahead, Reb.
You've only used CDOT. Have you considered any other sources of expansion? And there's two reasons I asked. I found out and got in trouble with two major projects I bid, and I relied on CDOT. One of them I got and regretted. One I got and I'm happy. I also
Can't hear
used,
you, Ron.
Part of you being reelected, you got to use the mic.
From experience, I also use the Dodge reports, and we also use the national averaging. Some things you have to take into consideration in increased project costs are the local availability. When I say that, we had a hell of a time getting cement in a certain area of the country. Another project cost was asphalt. Asphalt was very expensive in certain parts of the country during the time that I bid these jobs, so I think it behooved them to consider two things. These are budgets. They're not hard and fast, but you have to have a budget from a base point. Their base point is valid as far as I know when I say that. The problem I have with CDOT is they don't deal much with concrete, nor do they deal much with utilities. Sure. You look at West Colorado Avenue, a major portion of that increase isn't so much cost increase by contractors, it's a lot of utilities that weren't anticipated. I think you've got an item on there, today's budget, or for today's approval. So I don't want them set in stone, anybody. The whole purpose of this is basically to give us an idea of where we're supposed to be starting from. So if you, I don't care whether you pick 10% or 50% of what was done in 2012, it's still just a budget. And if they don't start that project for 7 to 8 years, like Mike said, it could be up or down by then.
I just want to remind us why we're here. This was about project cost revisions. We do have some items in here that talk about the budgets, and I address some of the questions that have come up. One being, if a member of government is increasing a project budget, the member of government shall provide an explanation. And then two, talking to what Kathleen talked about, is that in number 2, it has, during the budget or budget amendment process, member government shall identify whether the allocation of funds increases the project budget and provide an explanation. And then the last bullet on number 4, reporting, we had proposed a monthly report similar to the one you used to get for the original 2004 PPRTA capital project summaries. And that's the time where I guess we were proposing that we raise our hands and say, we already know that there's an issue here. So I guess I think this is a good discussion, but I'm just not sure that, when you look at the purpose of this policy, project cost revisions, why we're going through and trying to index those original budgets. So, understand if you want to do that, but I think we have it covered in a couple other locations here.
And I think, and that was the reason I asked the question, was that rather than go through the process of indexing all projects, when you do come forward with the report or the request for project award, part of your explanation might be that 28% of that increase is associated with construction cost indexing for that, versus having to go through the exercise of changing the budgets and changing all the projections for out-year projects when that 28% may not apply to yours.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's fine. That'll work. We can do that.
Scott was first, and then Dave.
I actually think it would be wise to do, even if it's just the off-the-looks exercise, do an indexing of the entire A list and compare that. We kind of need to do that on an every-year basis. If we're just doing it piecemeal on a project-by-project basis, by the end of the 10 years, we may be caught short. Whereas if you index the entire list and compare that to what your projected revenue is, you'll know sooner than later if you're going to have a problem on completing the A list.
Well, going through that exercise, for the staff to go through that is labor intensive for them. And maybe it's a process that if the decision is to index projects, that Bev or the RTA staff could just do across, in a spreadsheet, do across the board index for named projects, and would give us that kind of estimate and would be a data point in deciding mid-year and or annual budget allotments, given what we're seeing in a trend or something. So that, I'm not sure we want the staff to do that.
Well, that's how I was thinking of doing it, just that way, just basically taking the project cost, very simple. I'll probably do that on our list, anyway, just so. And then just a real quick point, somebody mentioned, we don't know where we started. When we did index them in the first round, we always, on the big Rainbow spreadsheet, we always kept the original project cost, and then it showed
We haven't started that rainbow chart yet.
Well, we have it, yeah, we just haven't passed on.
David, you had a question?
County already kind of eloquently put what I was going to say. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
So,
Don?
I have a question for I don't want to expect an automatic answer right now, but have you experienced in your projects a 28% increase in that period of time? Or is there some Colorado Springs effect that goes into this process? I don't expect an answer on that today because that takes analysis. And maybe it's just sit down with a cup of coffee and take a look at the projects and figure out where you're at. The second thing is on 4B, which is what we originally started talking about in Policy 26, there's a red line comment that basically says it's a distinction without a difference. And I think worded as it is right now, it's probably true. I would suggest that after the word memo in B, that we add identifying cost drivers and future mitigation activities.
so that you put some specificity into the response, rather than just saying, give us a memo.
What was that again? What was your wording? Cost drivers?
Identifying cost drivers and future mitigation activities. What are you doing about it? You know what the problems are. In this case, let's say Colorado Avenue is utilities is the cost drivers. Well, what's happening to mitigate some of those costs, if anything?
Okay. And that's what I was looking for, is like,
Yeah.
give me some more details so that
Yeah.
we come with what you guys are looking for.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to, because we were getting, and I thank Jennifer for bringing us back to the actual focus, because we're getting off into the weeds. This was originally designed to be, okay, when there's a significant, and granted, the problem comes with, okay, well,
What does that mean?
what is significant? Significant to me means something different than to somebody else, so that's why we kind of got down into the percentages. But when there is a significant deviation increase to a project, we, as an oversight committee, have to be able to explain that. To explain that, we need the information from the member government. They're grown-ups. They should be able to manage these project budgets on their own. That's what they're hired to do. And in most cases, there's usually not an issue with an increase being justified. However, it's important that we know that, because we have been entrusted to kind of keep an eye on that. So, again, like Jim was saying, we don't want to, say, okay, well, you have to go through and index everything and redo all your numbers and blah, 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 blah. When you come to us with an increase, we want to know why and what's being done to mitigate it, just like Tom said. That's kind of the 35,000-foot view of this. And I think we need to keep that in perspective, so that we don't, again, get down too much into the 3% here and 20% there. I kind of like, I think personally, I think a 25% increase is a significant increase. I know there are inflationary pressures. I know we're going to see more inflationary pressures because of what's going on with the economy. But for us to be able to reasonably explain this stuff, we have to have the information. And it shouldn't be too much to ask for, this is why this is happening.
All right, let's, one more comment.
I agree wholeheartedly with what Brian said. The only issue I think that we're going to have, and I think it's the issue that Mike has been bringing up, is the fact that our step ladder of the level of explanation we need is going to be pointless, because almost everything is going to come in at that highest threshold. So we may as well just put it as a blanket. We need this level of detail, since the step ladder is not going to make much sense if we don't have a different baseline. I think that's the only issue that was really being brought up, and then we got a little off track in talking about that. So.
Well, I kind of agree with that to a degree. And part of those percentage numbers was based on the assumption that, and now learning incorrectly, assuming that when you submitted a annual budget, that the cost numbers reflected something more close to reality than a 2011 estimate on the back of an envelope. And so your statement is exactly right. If we're basing it off of a 2011 or 2012, then come in here with a full-blown briefing. But that wasn't my intent.
Right.
And in my personal opinion, in the latter part of the first RTA project, I felt like we as a committee were put under a little bit of pressure of making a recommendation to the board when we didn't have the details and couldn't support it. And so, because we didn't have the information, if we postponed it and recommended not, it would delay the project going down the road. And that's certainly not our intent, to be a roadblock. And so my whole thought process behind this was have a decent baseline project when you're coming forward ready to award the project or change order somewhere in between along the process. If the total project cost to increase, we'd like to know some reasonable level of detail of why that's happening. And I think the board agrees with that concept. But knowing that the projects are at the 12 level, like you said, if there is in fact a 28% inflationary index that is reality, then everything is going to fall in the upper tier of the data required, and that wasn't the intent. So, Tom?
Being sensitive to your staffs. At the same time, I know that we've moved beyond slide rules and pencils when we do estimating. And that I would think you're at the point where you can say concrete costs this much per yard, asphalt costs this much per ton, whatever. Give me a new number. And it ought to go into some type of a program, I think, that was probably used in the first place. Maybe I'm off base, but that's how I think estimates get done today. It's not like the staff has to get together and everybody gets their pencils out.
And I think based on my conversation with Jennifer and Mike, that may be true for near-term projects. But when this was put together, that they didn't use that automated, they don't know how many cubic yards. I mean, they got a rough idea based on,
But
it's not
10
in that.
miles is going to cost.
It's not in that, the quantitative analysis part that you would need to get a final cost. And they don't do that until they get near term. I mean, is that right?
Yes. And I guess one of the things we can do is, as we get a project started, and what's happening now is when we're at the 30% level, we already know, man, it's a lot more. So
Right.
we have, maybe we'll just do that as we get projects going.
Let me make this proposal then. The memo itself, not the policy, copy of the policy, not the memo. As currently presented by Rick in this thing, doesn't suggest or have a percentage number of cost increases in it. Yeah, it does, I'm sorry. Can I just throw out there, for the sake of time here, that we remove the indexing part of the change to the memo. And as Jennifer pointed out, we provide an explanation in item 2. You're already providing an explanation for the increase in 2 and 3. And if we add Tom's Verspa's wording in the second bullet of number 4 to what caused the cost and what was driving the cost and the mitigation, we'll get at the details of what's driving a cost increase without putting a number to it in that way. And then we make the couple of administrative changes of adding the word "to" in that third line of the 4th bullet. But we remove the indexing. If we do that, would that be more palatable to you guys, Mike, Jennifer?
Yeah. Like I said, I was just thinking it might make it easier, but we can do that. We'll just
Jennifer, does that make sense to you?
just don't be prepared for sticker shock when we come.
No, I get it. I get it.
I guess I'm just kind of concerned about the bullet under number 4, because under number 4, we're really talking about reporting guidelines. That's how it starts out. And I think that this really gets to the heart of PPRTA, of what we've said we've been doing all along, which is talking about our budgets on a yearly basis. And, right now, the revenue is going based upon, that split, which isn't mandated by the ballot. But we have always talked about making sure that we work together to make sure that the projects, when they're ready, are moved along. So I'm not sure, I don't object to this bullet per se, but I'm not sure it really belongs under the reporting guidelines.
Let me ask you a question. When you do a joint project, is the cost share consistent across any joint project, or is it negotiated based on percentage of how many in the county and how many is in the city, or is it based on the ratio of funds distribution on the original ballot kind of thing? Is that the criteria you kind of?
Well, the way it was budgeted this second round and the way we covered the increased cost was the 70-30, which is the population. when we needed to find additional money for West Colorado, Bev said, well, we should kind of stick with the 70-30, and like I said, that, to me, that meant I had to find 8.6 million over 2 years, and that's really kind of created some issues. So what I want to have is, and whether it's in the policy or not, I just want the flexibility for the member government to work on it, and if I can't fund 70% on the joint project this year, but the county can maybe do more, 50-50, that we have the flexibility. So 1 year the county maybe gets a little bit more money from the 70-30 split, maybe the next year the city does. And then as we get toward the end of it, we'll adjust the budget so that the split is the 70-30. So I just want the flexibility to work from year to year because right now, like I said, if basically I lost the whole project because of West Colorado.
Right.
And so however that looks as far as, maintain flexibility.
I think Jennifer's got a point that is a different discussion than reporting criteria on project cost increases. And, well, I'm not sure that it needs to be.
Jim, I don't mind if it's in this policy as a general guideline. I mean, that's what we've been working on all along, is making sure that, even in PPRTA 1, we had a certain percentage split that we kind of had when we received our budgets, and then we worked together, and if there was an issue, then we revised those. I mean, like Mike said, the West Colorado Avenue project affected all the member entities, I think, well, really mainly the county and the city, in looking at what our projects were and the timelines for them. But I've committed to the city is to make sure that, if they have a project ready and they need money and there's not in reserves and we have the money available, all we want to do is make sure that these projects move forward on a timely manner. Sure. And if the project is ready, then we'll work with the city, just as I expect the same from the city as well. So I think, I don't mind that this bullet point is in here. I guess my point is that I'm not sure it really belongs under number 4.
I was going to suggest, Tony suggested, why don't we make it number 5?
And that's fine.
Okay.
Make it a separate bullet.
And that 70-30 split for the joint projects was based upon the original budgets. And like Mike said, Beverly suggested, because we don't have a project budget issue at this point, or a revenue issue, is to continue on with that split until there's a real good justification to change that.
And in the end, if it needs changing, the board has a policy to say we're going to do it 50-50 or whatever.
The board every year can budget whatever the heck we want, whether we propose something or not.
So, Jim, so that the one after the red line one then moves up to become the fourth bullet under number 4?
Right, and we move the red line down to bullet 5, separate bullet 5.
Okay.
Is that okay?
I move that we do that.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
I was going to make a motion. I want to see what Rick has to say.
Rick?
Do you want to postpone it a month so you can see a final?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I rescind my
Okay.
motion.
I would like to propose that we get a new red line version, kick this around, and come back and look at it. There's no rush for this.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody? Dr.
Yeah.
Noel?
I'd just like to make a comment in general, the way I read this. The public sees me as approving a system set up that the person spending the money can define their own limit, because we have allowed this span to be adjusted. Heretofore, we tell the public that the cost of the project is increasing, and that's why we need just to fund this extra money. But this is approving something ahead of time that we don't even know what it is.
No, it's not approving a project cost at all. It's just
Say the budget. They come to us with an estimated cost of the project, right? And we approve that and approve the funding. Well, if that estimated cost doesn't come to us really, they just spend what they want and then they come back and tell us later what it costs. It seems to me we didn't have any control over any of it.
I don't think that's what's happening.
Well, what isn't it? Does anybody else think that we just haven't given them more flexibility to spend projects that overrun their estimated costs without coming back to us?
They just took the.
I think that's what's just been asked, and I don't like it.
No, because we still have to come to you.
No, they still
Maybe I
have to.
misunderstand.
Yeah, I think that, This is just a process by which, some guidelines from which they come to us with those project increases for our approval. It's not giving them prior approval of any cost increases. It's really a methodology and a process coming forward so that when they come forward to us with a project and the project has cost increases, it's setting some guidelines of what our expectations are and the data that we need
But we
in order
don't
to
know
make
that until we hear what the problem is,
That's right.
right?
Well,
So why
they-
would I give them approval to go against what we might?
We're not giving them approval. What we're doing is saying is that in your planning, when you are doing a project and you know that there are cost increases, here's some guidelines of the data and the information that we kind of expect when you bring that to us, so that, one, they're not over-preparing for a very simple explanation for something, and two, they're not under-prepared for a large increase. It's just giving some guidelines from which they can determine as they're doing their estimate, okay, this hits the upper threshold of this stepladder. I need, the committee and the board would like for us to come back with this much information versus this little information. That's all it is.
So what's to stop an expenditure beyond what we originally paid for any good reason?
Nothing. But they come to us with those increased costs as they incur. They do that now.
I know, but this looks like it opens the barn door, and the horse is already gone.
I don't think so. Anyway,
I think it adds more visibility to us about what's going on, and it brings the truth back into the budget.
Right. Rick, we're going to wrap this up. Rick and Dave, and then we're going.
Maybe I'm missing something, but what concerns me is that West Colorado's going to cost them $8.7 million more. When we look at these figures, these are concrete, these are projections. We don't see it here. Am I missing something?
Yeah.
Why doesn't, when the new budget, he finds out it's going to cost $8.7 million more, it shows up here. So that when he comes and asks for it, it's not sticker shock.
It's the percentage of the total budget, a percentage of the total cost that would be not just the city's portion, but the combined cost of the project.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but we're not working with real numbers here. If you already know.
Well, in the 17 budget, we did make adjustments to cover it in 17, and then we have an estimate for 18.
Right.
They presented a plan last month.
Oh,
How it's budgeted out over 3 years. It's just
Right.
this year.
David?
On your red line revision, or what, or as it's being said, are you gonna take out this 28%?
Yes.
Or what you're saying? So
Yeah, Rick's going to redo that portion and give us another copy to look at.
So it'll just say, rather than 28%, it'll just say using a construction index to give them guidelines.
I think we're going to take it out altogether.
Yeah, we're not going to adjust the numbers. We'll just stick with.
Take it out altogether. All right, let's move on.
I'd like to ask another question.
And
If a
please
neighbor
use the
comes up to me and
microphones.
says, it's okay, you think, to index a cost at 28% higher than ballot costs, and just spend it.
Getting rid of
And
the-
then, any cost increase over ballot costs, we'll tell you what it was. Am I right?
No, because I still had to come back to request the 28%. That wasn't an automatic increase to budget. It was just a baseline to from where. So we were,
So,
yeah.
Is everything we approve actually 28% higher than cost?
No.
What? They is.
We're taking that out, though,
I'm taking
so.
Good. Okay.
All right, let's move on.
All right, I'm sorry.
We've
With my
delayed-
hearing, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
We've delayed this, but this is good discussion. I think, we want to try to get this amenable between the member governments, but at the same time, not overburden them, and just get that part done. So, Rick?
Who made the motion and second to postpone?
Hasn't been done. That's what it was.
Okay, can the chair make one?
So moved.
No.
Tony-
wait a minute.
Tony-
You've got to deal with the motion made to
Oh,
accept it.
yeah.
postpone.
Accept the what?
There was a motion and a second to accept it as it was written, taking out the 28% now.
And I rescinded my motion.
What?
And I
He
my
rescinded it.
He rescinded the
I
motion.
didn't hear it.
Okay, all right, so Tony, you've made a motion to postpone this a year, a month.
Table.
And Ed Dill's second, okay? All right, very good, thank you. Thanks, Jennifer, Mike. I
Okay.
appreciate your time and input into that, a good discussion. Okay, we got a motion and a thing, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, 2017 Capital Maintenance Public Transportation Contract, City of Colorado Springs.
Afternoon, Mike Chavez, City Engineering. I've got five, excuse me, for your approval. Yeah. Can I get one of those?
So these go together?
Yes. There's one new contract I'm walking on today, and then a revised contract list. It's a lot more readable, too.
The bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, there it is.
So the first item we have is, and that was partially my fault. I was out on Christmas break, and our admin person, too, was out, too, so we didn't realize that this was,
All right.
it wasn't intentional, Brian. I was just out. So first thing, we have a couple of land purchases for the Centennial Extension. The first one is for a house and property for $160,000. Let's see. Let me get my thing. Here we go. So we did some negotiating on that one, and our right-of-way consultant recommended that we settle for $160. I believe that one is, I forget the address, but there was 2 appraisals done. The second one was for a larger parcel, much larger property, also had 5 buildings on it, and we had 2 appraisals on that one too, and we used the higher of the appraisals because the owner kind of countered that he wanted to go with the higher appraisal.
Looking at GIS, those are on the southern end of that extension where it.
Yes, right off of Fontenay. If there's any more question on that, Aaron's here, he can answer it a little bit more. Next one is a change order for Matrix. They're working on designing a couple of bridges for us. There was some additional design work and some construction work that they're going to have to do, construction staking to lower a gas line that's in one of those bridges. So this work is more for design during construction, change order. Fourth one is we're going with the Academy over Cottonwood Creek Bridge. We decided to go through a construction manager, general contractor method. Yeah, construction manager, general contractor delivery. And what that does is during the design phase, you bring on a contractor to help with the design. Constructability and phasing is the big thing where that helps us because we get a better idea of how they can build it. So we can plan better, not necessarily saves cost, but it gives us a better idea of what the cost will be.
So the contractor doesn't get this thing and say, what the hell are they doing?
Yes, what were they thinking, those engineers? Also then, based on that, the contractor will give us a guaranteed maximum price, and if that number is something that we don't like or think is good, we have the option just to go out and bid it out. And then the last one is for the final design for the downtown pedestrian bridge, which we talked about previously at length. And I think bottom line there is I think we had committed that the PPRT max would be $3.5 million. I think that was the number that was agreed to. So if you look at the memo, we've got the preliminary design already included in the total, so we're about $1 million, a little bit over $1 million. So any question on any of these?
If I could, and believe it or not, it's not off the bridge.
Mhm.
I gave up on that.
the appraisal things, because that's kind of in my wheelhouse. One of the things I noticed when I was looking at it, and from a broad view, this may seem to be, not that big of a deal. But I noticed specifically on the property on West Fountain Arrow, the appraisals both came in within $5,000 of each other, around the 140 range, and we settled for 160. Now,
Yeah.
granted, if I'm an owner and I know I've got the city over a barrel, I'm going to try and get more money. But it seems like there's a rather large disparity between the two appraisals, which came in within $5,000 of each other,
And where we settled, yes.
and where we settled.
Aaron?
Sure.
Aaron's.
Aaron Egbert, Public Works, City Engineering. That was a very difficult property. Mesa Housing is a low-income kind of subsidized housing. The guy's name is Steve Handon. If you were to Google Steve, you'd see that he has lots of properties all over town, and he puts high-risk or difficult people to place in those houses. So when he came back with the kind of wanting more money, us and our right-of-way agent just agreed that it was probably fine to settle, and then we had a lot of challenges, can't really get into the details with the tenant issues, but there were substantial issues, and they helped us through the process substantially.
So the relocation costs of the difficult-to-place folks kind of came into play.
Yeah, and Steve's helping us replace this person, so it just felt like it was the right thing to do.
That's what I needed to hear. Thanks.
Any other questions, Scott?
I need to recuse myself from item 3.
Item 3, okay. Any other questions? Yep.
Items 1, 2, 4, and 5, no, 4, 1, 2, 4, into 1, number 3, into a vote, number 5.
Rep, I cannot hear you.
Okay, so explain.
I want to bifurcate this into 3 separate items for a vote. Items 1, 2, 4 for the first, and I would make a motion right now to approve.
1, 2, and 4,
1, 2, and 4.
and I'll second that.
Wait.
And then item 3 into a separate vote because of Scott, and item 5 into a separate discussion altogether.
Can you explain why?
Yes. Item 3 to excuse Scott.
Rather than him having to abstain from the whole thing.
Right. And item 5, because of previous discussions and what I understood, if anybody wants to explain it to me, that's fine.
Okay, any other discussion? There's a motion on the floor.
Second the motion.
I thought I already said that.
Brian seconded it. Any other discussion?
Is that a motion on the bifurcation?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason I supported it was because it allows, again, Scott to abstain from 3 without having, and allows him to vote on all the others. And number 5, it allows for members who may wish to vote no on number 5 to approve the ones they agree with.
All right. All those in favor of the motion to bifurcate the list as described, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries.
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment? This spare microphone that's over there, if we would pass that to Mr. Williams.
Either that or you're going to have to shout.
Get a megaphone.
And Rick Hoover?
Make sure you turn it on. Okay, turn it on.
So, and I would like to forward a motion of approval for items 1, 2, and 4 that have been separated out.
Second.
All those in, any discussion? All those in favor of 1, 2, and 4? Say
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Seconded that one.
Do I hear a motion for the item number 3?
I would like to move approval, item number 3, noting that Scott said he needed to abstain.
Second.
Tom Bearsma. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Move to approve item number 5.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Whoa, hold on. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Is this for or against?
Against.
This is the against.
So they count first.
Yeah.
Okay, let's. have
6,
the
6 people.
6 are opposed.
The opposed?
Opposed.
6, 1, 2,
Why the
3, 4,
opposition?
5, 6. 6 and 6.
Why the opposition?
Okay, and in
Because it's a
favor?
bridge that's going nowhere.
In favor.
I'm sorry.
Tom, are you in,
I was going to lose. I wasn't even going to raise
Tom?
my hand. but-
What?
are you in favor or you in
No, he
favor?
opposed.
He's
He's in
opposed.
favor. I'm opposed.
Yeah, wrong Tom.
May I request a roll call vote, please, for the record?
Yes.
Thank you.
But you passed, didn't it?
This is the fantasy bridge.
Okay.
Over to
She's asked for a hand.
Olympic Museum.
So was it 6-6?
It's not funded.
So what did we come down with?
Okay, I'll,
Not sure, just you could
give
change
the-
your vote.
those in favor, if you could hold up your hands so I can write them
Is this the
down.
bridge?
This is us, yeah.
6-5.
And Tom Rogers, are you,
Change his mind?
Okay.
are you yes or no?
No.
No? So then I'm just counting 5 in favor. So, okay, opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can, we'll get the names, thank you. But failed 5 to 7? Is that what I'm counting?
That's what I got.
Hooper had the best.
That's a different question. Fantasy and Enchanted is this one.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Kathleen, we'll provide you the names.
Thank you. If you'll provide them in the minutes, that's what I'd like.
It's that one. Went with that one right there.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay.
All right, El Paso County, capital maintenance and public transportation contracts.
Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Committee. Just have 4 items for you today. The first is with Colorado Springs Utilities. It's a check request in the amount of $1.5 million, and this is to get them going on the, provide them funds for the electric undergrounding of the project and also the purchase of the light fixtures as was identified in the contract. The second item is for, the last 3 items are for our maintenance program. The first is for our graveling and chip seal program. This is material purchases that we will provide to our crews, and they will be doing the work for chip sealing and graveling. And this is for aggregates and approximately $150,000 to chips and $80,000 for gravel, for a total of $230,000. We have multiple contracts that were approved by our Board of County Commissioners in 2015, and the intent of that multiple award is so that we can, when we need the material, depending on the location of the roads, we'll purchase the material at the lowest cost for us to haul. And so, so the total contract is for, amount is for $230,000, but we can apply it to any one of those vendors for the best price. For the asphalt maintenance material purchase order, this is a cooperative IFB that the City of Colorado Springs has for patch mix, and it has several renewal contracts, and what we're asking for is for $200,000 to any one of those various companies, and we will make sure that we get the cheapest price based upon that awarded pool, and that is used for any kind of potholes or repairs before we do our pavement overlay program. And then the last item is our crack seal program. This is material that we purchased from West States Incorporated. We had a great price through the Pueblo County bid, and this is for our crack seal program. This is materials that we provide to our crews, and they go out and crack seal as many roads as they can with this material.
So you answered one question. On material purchases, you guys do try to combine and get together and get a good price on quantity with city and county?
Yeah, essentially, a good example, we found a great cost through Pueblo County versus what we could get ourselves or what we saw through the city of Colorado Springs. So the material meets the requirements for our, and so that's a great. And then the asphalt patching is a piggyback off the city of Colorado Springs contract.
Great, good effort, thank you. Questions for Jennifer? Joan, you had your hand up first.
Not a question, I'm just ready to make a motion if there are no questions.
Are there any questions for Jennifer? Tom?
Is it typical in a government-to-government deal like you're doing with CSU Electric here to prepay?
We're following similar to what the city of Colorado Springs does, and this is unique because usually El Paso County, when we do utility relocations, we have a utility relocation agreement. Because the city has an executive agreement with its utilities, and this is a joint project, we're following that because I think that gives us the best price for that undergrounding of those utilities. So essentially, we're following through with essentially what the city does, and so we're paying up front so that they can get the work done, and then we'll, at the end, we're monitoring those costs all along. At the end, we'll make sure that we do a final reconciliation. Thank you, Rick. Oh, words. And then any money they'll give back to PPRTA, or if we have, for some reason, we wouldn't wait till the end if we're thinking we're going over. But yeah, similar. That's not something we typically do for county projects because we have a utility agreement and we have a purchase order. So, I mean, in all effective purposes, we do. We just do it usually in a different way.
Rep.
Question, Jennifer, how close is this estimate? How close is this estimate now? I've had some discussions with people that know what they're talking about. You hate Jeff.
What?
Yeah, I hate you. How close do you think it is? The $1.5 million?
Well, this is based upon an estimate that Colorado Springs Utilities put together for us. We are not the expert on cost estimating electric utilities, but I'm hoping it's the best estimate that they could put together.
But
seems reasonable.
Well, I'm not saying that, but literally it was done well after when we had a final plan, alignment, and everything, and here's going to be a light pole, and here's what the power is. Okay, thank you.
We have a motion. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the county's contracts, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Could we get the names on the motion in second, please?
Made the motion.
Joan made it, and who seconded?
Somebody seconded it.
If nobody did, I seconded it. Then.
Okay, so just 1 second, Brian. Rick, given the decision for the cities, on the city's last one on the bridge thing, I'm going to need to hear some discussion to take to the board on some feelings here. So I don't want to get into a long 30-minute discussion, but I'm going to need something of why the committee decided to vote the way they did. So maybe out of context means we've already made the vote, but I can't just go to the board and say we decided we weren't going to do it. I need to know why. So if each of you who voted no would just give me some statement or feeling or thought, I would appreciate it. We can start with you, Red.
Before you do that, I want it from both sides then. If I have to say why I said no, then somebody that has to say that said yes.
That's fine. That's fine. So let's just kind of go around the room and state why you voted, why you did.
I voted against it basically because it seems like we've had this discussion, how many times we put a limit on where we would go or we felt comfortable as far as funding it. There was a lot of chunk of money taken out of bicycles, pathway in general across the city to fund just one bridge for City of Champions, which is basically what it's for. And the way I looked at it was we'd already kind of hashed it out. We had a limit that we went to, and it seems like it always comes back. It keeps coming back, and now's the time to just say, no, we're done. Besides that, it was a walk-on again.
Okay.
Just looking for the reason on the yes. I think it's a project that will be great for the city. I was not here for part of this for previous discussions on it. I think it's a great project that needs to be done, and I am in favor of it.
I vote in favor, so.
Why?
I didn't vote against it, did I?
No, he's asking.
Okay.
Reb's asking for whys.
That's it. I wish to support it.
Okay.
Why?
Support it. He feels like they ought to support it.
voted for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ed?
I haven't been comfortable with it because of the vacillations that I've seen in prices and the scope of the whole thing. And then when it's walked on again today,
This is
the
the
comfort
bridge
level is
downtown
not
that
there.
goes across the track. Oh, I don't like that.
Okay. Joan?
I voted against it.
And by the way, I'm not going to mention any names here, so.
I don't care. You can say my name.
I am perfectly fine.
I agree with Dave and Ed as to their comments. I've not been comfortable with this from the beginning, with the fluctuations and changes. And I'm also a little leery when something is walked on at the 11th hour.
Right, so Mike provided an explanation of how that happened.
Yes, I understand.
So everybody heard that explanation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I voted against it for the reasons stated here. I'm very frustrated to see walk-ons for something that comes in being contentious based on previous discussions. Part of the thing that we are supposed to do here is think about things ahead of time and take a deliberative process in doing that. I have serious concerns about the cost of the bridge. I have serious concerns about a bridge going to an open parking lot because we haven't seen a lot of progress on the other end of the bridge. And I guess I want to see more detail in a timely fashion before, so we actually have time to think about it before we show up here.
Okay. Tom?
In previous discussions where we've talked about this bridge, I've heard there are alternatives to this, and I haven't seen the need for the bridge.
Okay.
This group, as well as the board, agreed to a total RTA contribution to this bridge of $2.5 million in the previous action. What's summarized at the bottom of this is the 3 incremental contracts that have been approved that I don't know if we're nowhere near the $2.5 million limit. This is just an additional approval against that already approved $2.5 million budget. So I don't understand why this is an issue when we already approved RTA would contribute up to $2.5 million.
So this is,
So that's why I voted for.
so this is, in your opinion, requesting the final design of $1 million, which is part of the 2.5?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I voted yes because of the original back, 6 months ago.
Rick, I can't hear you.
I voted yes on it because on the original application, I voted yes because of the leverage it gave for the total cost of the bridge in the project all and the total take I'm sorry. Ouch. Yeah, I'm kind of hurt. But that this project is going to promote the city, and we agreed to the 2.5, as Scott said, and now we're going back and putting that water to it. I don't see the justification.
And you voted yes? Brian?
Yeah, I voted no in accordance with all my previous votes. My long-standing opposition to this project as taking money designated for bike trails and redirecting it almost wholly for this bridge that is being built for the benefit of a development, not for the benefit of the citizens. And all, my colleagues have stated a lot of the other reasons why I opposed it. I will continue to oppose it. For me, it's a matter of principle, and that's why I voted that way.
Okay, I voted yes for the same reasons. We had approved a dollar amount, and I understood this to be a contract towards that total amount and not an additive cost project. So that was mine. Reb?
I voted no, and I will continue to vote no until I see some action that this is not a bridge to nowhere. It's my understanding, and I have a couple of fairly reliable sources, that we're having trouble funding what's going to be at the other end of this bridge. That's point one. Point two, I know bridges in this county that are being replaced for a third of the cost of this bridge, and they service a whole lot more people. I've heard estimates of 4,000 people. They've never said whether that's 4,000 people a day or 4,000 people a week or 4,000 people a month over this bridge. I want more information. I don't recall it the same as others in terms of the total contract amount and whether this is a drawdown on that. So until I see more information, I'll stay no.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. Member governments and other reports. City of Colorado Springs Transit. Brian, thank you for being patient.
Good afternoon. Brian Vituli.
Picture of the cat.
Oh, thanks. City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit with your monthly transit report. Comparing November of 2016 to November of 2015 for our fixed route services, we saw an increase of over 12%. So this is consistent with, over the last 3 years, November has traditionally dropped somewhat in ridership. We were higher than last November, but it is it's kind of a seasonal cycle where ridership tends to dip during the winter months. For our ADA powered transit service, we saw almost a 14% increase in ridership from November 2015 to November 2016. And for our van pool, our Metro Ride service, we saw a 30% decrease over the same time period. So November of 2016 was somewhat higher than last month, October of 2016, but it's still continuing that downward trend of ridership on our van pool service. For a project update, we're going to be holding public meetings later this month for our fall 2017 service changes. We're continuing our work to improve our overall system productivity and our performance of the system, to continue increasing frequency on high ridership routes and improving access to high employment areas. The service changes are grouped into 3 categories: service increases, scheduling modifications, and 1 route modification. For our service increases, we're proposing to increase frequency on Route 25, which operates on Academy Boulevard from the Citadel Mall north to the Voyager Parkway Transfer Center. So currently it has 30-minute service. We're continuing our increases of frequency on those high ridership routes to Route 25. So this is the third highest ridership route in our system.
Really?
And over the last several changes, we've done Route 5, which is that east-west connector from the downtown terminal to the Citadel Mall. And then just this past spring of 2016, we did the Nevada corridor, north and south. So we're continuing to provide some more opportunities for people to move throughout our system a little bit more efficiently. And what we need for this change are more buses. So we're going to be getting in more buses late, early fall. That will enable us to add this frequency. Our scheduling modifications will be implemented on April 30th this spring, and these are mostly just scheduling adjustments, time point adjustments on routes 23, 25, and 27. These are changes that are pretty invisible, but they do have a great impact on on-time performance. So they allow our routes to run more reliably. In our route modification, we're proposing to change Route 6. Currently, it operates on Fillmore Street and makes a deviation on El Paso, 4th Street, and Hancock. We're proposing to just eliminate that section and just operate on Fillmore Street. We prefer to operate on busier corridors. So there is a neighborhood that does have some ridership north of Fillmore. So we're going to let the public process, determine which way we go on that. But before we make this routing change, Fillmore is in desperate need of sidewalks. It has no sidewalks on much of this area. And we received a transportation enhancement grant through PPACG's the federal grant program several years ago. And we have made a request into the Federal Transit Administration to do a scope change to accommodate this request. And we did a tip amendment through PPACG, and that was approved. The FTA is okay with it, but now we need to go through the public process to see how the neighborhood and the rest of our riders feel. So this is going to be part of the public process for the fall changes. If it does go in favor of making the routing adjustment, it will not be implemented until, at the earliest, October of 2018. Because following approval, we need to do design, there needs to be construction, right-of-way negotiations and all of that. It's a pretty complex project on that section of Fillmore.
Transit would fund the sidewalks on
It's a grant that Transit applied for and received several years ago. So it's
an access grant, isn't it?
transportation enhancements. It was several years ago.
So it runs, so it's actually sidewalks on Fillmore.
Yes, and originally we received the grant to put sidewalks on 4th Street on the area that we operate now. But before we do that work and then decide later to change the route to Fillmore, we wanted to get ahead of it and do
So
this
that's
change.
about a half a mile or so from 4th to Fillmore, roughly.
A little bit less. It's about
Because 4th is right there at the
quarter of a mile, 3/10 of a mile.
So,
Yeah.
So how far on Fillmore would you be putting the sidewalks in, from where Stone Street to?
It would be from El Paso to Hancock. So that same stretch that we operate on 4th Street, just move that down to Fillmore.
All right. Doesn't solve the overall problem, but.
Right, and it's.
He could take some of their pots of money for pedestrian access or something. Tony?
Brian, I just had a question. You were talking about the service increases, and I think you just had a list of 3 things that you guys are targeting on your service increases. I heard one of them was high employment areas. What were the other 2?
No, I'm just saying that these are the objectives of these service changes.
Okay, and what?
To improve the overall productivity and on-time performance of our system, It's in your memo.
Is that wording in there somewhere?
Yep, increasing frequency on high ridership routes. It's in that very first paragraph.
Okay. Then the only question I had on that, how are those high employment areas identified for you guys? What do you use to identify those?
Well, we have, those main corridors that we've already increased frequency on,
Sure.
Boulder Platte, North and South Nevada, Academy Boulevard, they are transit generators. There are a lot of people who go to those corridors for employment.
Okay. What source are you using for those numbers? I understand that these are areas that you already have service routes, but what is the what quantitative information do you have to identify those as high employment areas?
It's census information and
Okay.
information that the city has on those large retail and employment generators.
I might add, and Brian, correct me, but Tony, part of the regional transportation planning process, there are a number of density surveys, employment surveys, this kind of data that PPACG has as part of the overall transportation planning structure. And I'm guessing that those are some of the sources of the data that you use that, because
Yes.
there's a census, there's a density, there's a projected census, there's a whole bunch of data that the guys upstairs have got in terms of who are the major employers, how many they employ, where they commute from. That's all part of a census program that they've got upstairs.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. PPACG, before they do every regional transportation plan, so this is an effort that they will be kicking off in the coming months. They will do a small area forecast, yeah,
I'm missing that word.
which looks at population and employment growth in the region. So there's a lot of that goes into this, and yeah, we use a lot of that for the development of our regional transit plan also.
David?
On the north side, at what time, or what point do you start entertaining the idea of running buses all the way up to Airquest and where Great Wolf and some of those areas are?
Well, coming out of our last 2040 transit plan, one of the key recommendations was to focus on improving our existing system. So that's our system as it is now and the core service area. And when there's a strong desire or a strong need to go outside of that, we look for partnerships. So we're looking currently, we're meeting with several city council members and the northern hospitals to see if we can come up with some type of coordinated effort to serve the northern hospitals, which is, they're certainly in need of service, but with our current resources, it's just beyond our reach right now. So if we can get those partnerships in place, that would be, a key way to fund those services.
You've got some major industrial employers, Ball, Lockheed, all of some fairly major employers up there that
Progressive insurance.
That's
a
actually
lot
what I
of
was getting
those
at.
companies I know in other cities, like Lockheed, for instance, in some places they're located, has a partnership with transit to provide reduced cost, or they pay their employees a transportation fee for public transportation kind of stuff. And so, it seems to me that some of those large corporate partners may be a good one for that Voyager Parkway corridor.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
Maybe an express bus up and back during certain periods. But anyway.
Yeah, well, and before, tough economic times of 2009 or 10, our system spread throughout the city, way out east to Falcon, way up north into this area, and these were some of the routes that were cut because ridership really never reached the projected levels. So there's need all over, but it's how you measure that, and sometimes it's not as high as the need in other areas. So it's just a prioritization that's taken hold.
Right.
With regard to the system capacities and expansions, there was, back during Mayor Rivera's administration, there was a group of us a large and diverse group that was put together to study the future of regional transit. And many of us spent a great deal amount of time coming up with alternatives and suggestions and recommendations, and that thing's been gathering dust on somebody's shelf for, 10 years now almost?
Since the first council.
Yeah. So the problem has always been, as it continues to be, the control of the transit system by the city alone. And until that is resolved, and it is actually turned into a regional transit system, we are going to continue to run into not only funding issues, but capacity issues, because of the controlling entity.
Excuse me, real quick. Do you know whose shelf that's gathering dust on?
Yeah, the current mayor's.
Okay.
It hasn't moved. It's still there.
Okay.
I mean, those of us who participated, we have the documentation and everything, but the recommendations and the final stuff, and I'll be willing to bet that there's probably a couple copies sitting down at Transit too. So if you want the information, it is available.
It's on our website also.
Yeah, but again, the problem comes back to the controlling entity, same as with our utilities.
Well, but in all fairness, I just, not as around the table, but I attended those Fort meetings as well. And I've even expressed the desire to try to help resurrect some of that. And with the new administration and the new mayor, the unfortunate thing that happened with that recommendation is it fell on the city council within months of the decision to create a mayor versus a city manager, and it fell on deaf ears, and Bach wanted nothing to do with it. So it's not that it's not a good report, because it was a very, very thorough report with, as Brian said, a wide range of stakeholders that participated in it over a good year, at least, I would think, right? And so it's a great report. It's out there, Future Regional Transit on their website. But I, like Brian, would like to see that resurrected. But anyway, just for information purposes.
Yeah, and informationally, it is best practices. We went all across the United States and even looked at other transportation systems out in the world to kind of pick out what would be the best for our particular
density and
rather spread out area.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Brian? Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
City of Colorado Springs change order and property acquisition report.
Mike Chavez, City Engineering. We just had a change order for Woodman for some adjustments of some storm sewer. And then we had a little bit for the Andersondale contract.
Can I ask real quick?
Mhm.
On the Pikes Peak Greenway, it just says additional funds to complete the final invoice. What was the final invoice entailing? Do we know?
Yeah, Kathleen can answer that.
That's number wrong, but I believe it would be 391,000.
For
381.
Thank you, 381. And that was for the 30% design of the bridge, including the additional cost, which had to do with, we found some soil issues in the area, so we went into a little bit more when we potholed within train tracks, which you don't get to do very often. We found some soil issues that we didn't really like, so we went into a little bit more detailed foundations.
Any question? Oh, Tom?
This change order one, what we voted against in the previous documentation, because it's the same dollar amount.
Yes.
6,556.
No, the final design was 842,000. But I just noted the original dollar amount for the preliminary, this,
Citation, I thought, right? Yeah.
yeah, just so you kind of see the total.
Oh, Mike, things that, everybody pause for a second. I'm an old fart and I'll forget it. On your change orders for Academy over Cottonwood Bridge, on the back, you've got Centennial Boulevard Extension.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll fix that.
What are we talking about?
I have a question on the first
Go ahead.
one. Mike, does that mean there is a total of $1,000 for that union in Clayton? For
Yes.
stormwater- storms?
Yes.
Why? Was something major overlooked?
Well, we're at, with all seven, we're at 1.28. So that's tracking, that's, these larger,
Going by these here, it's a total of 400.
it's a 30-minute, yeah, it's a,
I'm not saying that.
yeah.
But for storm sewer, whether it's, what was in the contract?
No, I'm sorry. These are previous ones. The one that we're adding to the log is just for 98,000. It's cute. We've issued
They've
several.
issued 1 through 6 already.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are historical.
Okay, but totaling $500,000, I'm going to round it up, $500,000 on a $31 million project, and that is not very much. When I say storm sewer should have been a small part of it, you've got, and I'm assuming this is, and you know what the word assume means, right? And you know who comes last. Isn't this basically the union?
No, it's actually widening the Union intersection is a large part of it, but it goes all the way to almost Sam's and goes up to Rangewood. So it's a pretty long stretch. And
Is this all, the storm sewer all along there then?
no, this is just some, and I just,
Not this one, but all of them.
yes, there's storm sewer going in the whole stretch. Yeah.
I'm containing it really there.
No, it's a pretty, it's a long stretch.
All right, any questions for Mike on your change order? It's informational only. All right, Rick, thank you, Mike. Maintenance of efforts.
Information only, simply a reminder that the reports will be due in the February cycle. So this is just a heads up.
All right.
Would you like to make that board meeting the 8th instead of the 18th?
Yes, I would.
Well, I would have been late if I didn't.
Okay, City Car Street Board Policy 10, Transportation Capacity Reduction. Rick, who's going to head this off? Kathleen? Some of the stuff that's nice. I don't think she's going to do a presentation. Feel free.
Okay. We'll tag team this one. This came to our, I believe it, Blue?
Yeah, Blue.
Hi there. Okay. This came to our attention last month. This is a rather old policy that, to be truthful, no one seems to had followed this since perhaps the policy was written. So it hasn't been used very much. But it came to our attention last month when Rick looked at an invoice that we had on a traffic study and research and said, oh, this is a lane reduction, so I shouldn't be paying for it. Actually, the invoice that was in question was from a consulting firm for a study. And the policy itself, if we're just going to follow the policy, says, any transportation capacity reduction, such as a lane reduction on a street, must be presented and approved by the Board of Directors in advance of any PPRTA payment for such activity. This was not the construction cost of anything, it was simply a study. We have many studies that will look at potential of lane reductions, talk about whether or not it's a good idea, that type of thing. That's just sort of standard traffic engineering. So I don't think that that particular invoice really fell under Policy 10. It was a traffic study being paid out of one of our pools of funds specifically for traffic studies. However, it up to our attention that here was a policy we'd all sort of been ignoring, and forgive me, I didn't mean to ignore it. I didn't know it was there, and we were doing lane reductions on roads before I got here and seemed to not be coming to PPRTA board. So I wanted to bring this to your attention, see if this is something that you want to continue with, or if this is a policy that has become outdated. I will give you just a little information that, first of all, this policy is in direct opposition to several of our A-list capital projects. And so there is a conflict there, and I believe that when we're under conflict like that, we always need to look at what the voters approved and follow those things. The other thing is that this policy is against a city ordinance. We have a complete street city ordinance in Colorado Springs, and I'm mandated by that ordinance and by City Council to make the best use of existing pavement that I can. And if we have excess pavement that's not needed for the capacity of vehicles, it's my duty to provide that pavement for other users, such as bike lanes or transit stops or that type of thing. I think we probably do this a lot more commonly than you might realize. And the other question I have is, this talks about sort of construction funds. Typically, we do it at no cost, and let me give you an example. When we're repaving a road, and let's say that we're repaving that road with PPRTA maintenance funds, and it is a 4-lane roadway that has very light traffic on it and doesn't need any 4 lanes, once that road is milled and overlaid, we will repave it with 2 lanes and a bike lane. But the striping of the 2 lanes and the bike lanes costs no more than the striping of the 4-lane roadway did. So we're not, it's things that we're doing free. The only things that we might add to are bike symbols, that type of thing that would be an additional cost. But we tend to buy those out of our bike excise tax. So we also have a A-list project that is ongoing in this PPRTA to add bike lanes in the city. So I would be a little at a loss at how I use that money if I'm not doing it within the existing pavement. Because to completely rebuild a road in order to add a bike lane is not something that we can readily afford and is not feasible within the amount of money we get from PPRTA either. So this is either something that can continue, and I'll bring to you any discussion we have in the future of lane reductions. CAC and the board might want to reconsider this. I'll leave it directly up to you. I do think my interpretation is that the invoice in question really does not relate to Policy 10, and so that's no longer the issue. Thank you.
Okay, Brian?
Was this for the Research Parkway laning that had to be removed?
Yes, it was the study for research.
Okay. Is everybody familiar with what happened with that? Okay. So I don't need to go into it?
Tony?
It says that this policy was put in place in 2006 we've got a little bit of information on that, but what was the primary reasoning behind implementing the policy in the first place?
It's funny that you should ask, because I asked Rick that same question of what was the impetus behind this policy, and it goes back to a meeting, and Rick went back to the archives and pulled that, and I think he's getting ready to tell us some of the discussion, but I understand it came up at the time from Commissioner or Councilman Wayne Williams.
Actually, the original complaint came from then Commissioner Jim Binsberg, or I believe he was actually former Commissioner Jim Binsberg by 2006, but it was an issue that Mr. Binsberg had over a lane reduction on Cheyenne Road. Cheyenne Road used to be a 4-lane road, and back in 2006,
It was now.
back to 2006, we reduced it to a 2-lane road with bike lanes. We have never had capacity problems on that road since that time, get few complaints, and get a fair number of cyclists using the road. So that was a successful result in the city, and we've never been tempted to change it, shall we say.
If you'll start reading at the top of page 3 for that half a page.
Jim? Kathleen, I don't know that the policy is in conflict with what the city is doing. I think what the policy is saying is you can't use PPRTA money to do what the city feels they need to do under their own guidance.
So, and is that the case for all projects?
No, I'm saying, we're talking about this project, this particular thing. I don't think that this isn't a broad statement. This is talking about a specific issue, and it's, I think what they're getting at is, if there's going to be a lane reduction, then, and you're trying to use PPRTA money with it, then you need to get approval before that happens.
So if we don't use PPRTA money, other than the fact that we're using our maintenance money for striping, but it's no additional cost, do I need to come back to you with that?
I think if you're not using PPRTA money, no.
Not any additional PPRTA money, other than what our normal maintenance
What
would be?
she's saying is that with maintenance, if I understand you correctly, that and for maintenance money, they don't come back to us and tell us by project. They just do it. And that the cost to stripe a 4-lane road versus a 2-lane road with bikes is revenue, expense neutral.
Yes.
And so.
And I concede all of those things. I'm saying if it's a capital expenditure that you want to use PPRTA money for, then the rule would say you need to come in and talk about it.
Okay.
If it's not a capital expenditure, if it's maintenance, it's within your purview.
And is that now going to be the rule for all projects? That if money is spent reducing laneage, that we need to come and talk to you? Because we have some major projects here that have reduced laneage, and we haven't presented them for that approval.
The way I would, it's not, do we now have to, it's been the policy all along, and we just necessarily hadn't been doing it. And so,
Okay.
And so I'm not saying this is not new, this was in here.
Yeah.
But reading this that Rick provided and this policy, I really don't understand the need for the policy. West Colorado Avenue is a project that is a lane reduction project. It's going from 4 lanes to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And one could argue that that design plan and construction plan has been presented to both us and the board and has been implicitly approved going forward as a lane reduction project.
Right.
And so one could imply that this policy was adhered to in that thing, although not necessarily specifically, hey, we need to get approval because of policy 10.
Right. It was part and parcel of the proposal.
Right. And so, but for the life of me, as you look through policies, I don't understand why this policy's there, unless it was some burr up somebody's saddle on a particular project that had the ear of a commissioner that drove this into the board for some reason. In today's world, with the stuff that we're doing, is this still a viable, realistic policy, or does this need to go away?
I actually was at that meeting.
Okay.
It was a while ago.
Can I hear?
But it wasn't because somebody had a burr up there. It was, and former Commissioner Bensberg at the time had brought it up. Commissioner Williams kind of championed it because it was more of a matter of principle, proper usage of PPRTA funds. The discussion kind of went towards Mayor Rivera, as was his wont, was pushing multimodal reasoning. And Mayor Small, or not Mayor Small, but Councilmember Small at the time, was talking about the fact that regardless of what happened, it should be our goal should be towards safety of everybody utilizing the corridor. So while I agree with Commissioner Williams on it's always been my stance that the money be used appropriately and in keeping with the, the intent of the voters based on the ballot language, that's kind of how this particular policy, it was basically to provide advance notice of something that would reduce capacity within a transportation corridor so that it could actually be discussed amongst the CAC and the board to ensure proper usage of funds. Is that clarified?
Yeah, but I don't see how accomplishing a project that's approved and there's multiple components of a project, why you would need to get each component approved.
It was specifically about dealing with the capacity reduction was the biggest issue. And as we saw recently with the brouhaha over what happened on research, sometimes the public isn't always aware of something until it happens. And kind of our job is to vet this stuff, discuss it fully, know what's going on so that we can make a proper recommendation to the board. The idea was to prevent invoices from coming through and just being paid that were not appropriate to the usage of PPRTA funds. That was the intent.
You know,
now, whether or not that's been the result, I don't know.
if I could address that right now and point out that there was a very major shift in concept between PPRTA 1 and PPRTA 2. PPRTA 2 specifically said transportation projects, and they include bikes, they include pedestrians, and the city took full advantage of that, and we have funds for doing bike lanes and missing sidewalks and improving sidewalks and trails. And those were voted by our voters to be on the A list of PPRTA 2. To then say that there's a policy that says it's only about vehicles and we are to ignore those other means of transportation, I think specifically goes against the ballot vote of 2012.
And that's not what I said, though.
But
I think the outcome is that.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't think that's what this is saying. I think if the policy, the purpose of the policy is not clear, clearly.
Yes.
And it's not clear why this. If the intent is to provide the board advance notice of a project that is going to reduce capacity on a road, and it's simply to inform them that that's what this project entails, then I get it, because research is a good example of what happened when that wasn't very well disseminated. I'm not saying that they weren't public meetings.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, because there were. But we also realize that people don't necessarily go to those things, as you and I know.
Well, and as long as you brought up research. I'm not saying I want to change this project because I really started this project. But I just want to point out for those who are thinking, oh, well, it didn't work on research, we should never road diet. Research has 20,000 vehicles a day on it, and it's a 6-lane roadway, and we reduced it to 4 lanes. Do you know how many vehicles a day are on Colorado Avenue in the no man's land section?
20,000.
20,000 vehicles a day. You're going to reduce that from 4 lanes basically to 2 lanes. It's going to work just fine. I have looked at the modeling extensively, and it's going to work fine. And it's very much a different animal than up in Briargate. But that is why you have traffic engineers and why we do things like demonstration projects to go, will this work in a suburban setting? Nope, it won't. And so you pull out the delineators and go, okay, I'll start over again. And that's why I like being in traffic engineering and not in structural engineering, because you just make a mistake on one of those bridges, you have to live with it all your life. I only have to hear about it for a couple months. So I am fine bringing major projects. I just want to be clear that when you see a new bike lane in the city, keep in mind that we repave roads using our general funds. We repave roads on 2C, and both of those could come up with bike lanes in them. we repave roads with PPRTA, but if it's no additional cost, then it's not something that I necessarily will bring to you. I will bring you road reduction projects that I have to spend additional money on, say doing bump outs and that type of thing, in order to create that narrower road, and we can discuss what that narrower road will look like, just as we have on Colorado Avenue. And yes, I thoroughly believe it will work. I have no doubts about that.
Tom, Brad, and Tony.
I don't think this is something where we have to be at loggerheads. I think the essence of this, Kathleen, is tell us, as part of the presentation, we're going to do this, just like happened on Colorado Avenue. There wasn't any discussion about, gee, is that a great idea or not? It was, oh, so that's what you've come up with, so that we're informed of it, because people do come to us and ask questions. And so we're not throwing down the gauntlet and saying, no, we're not paying the darn bill. We're saying, tell us about what you're doing.
That's the reason they have
For-
congressional notifications of construction projects.
Yeah, for ones that are going to spend additional money. And I'm not sure where we're taking the money out for research. We also have a bike excise tax in Colorado Springs that we use for bike improvements as well. So, but if I have an A-list capital project, I will come to you. Do you want to know about the ones that are on maintenance?
I would think so, because I think the policy doesn't
Yes.
differentiate between capital and
It doesn't, yeah. And the thing, can I
And I
make
can certainly say that there aren't many bikers in Briargate if you read all the letters.
Yeah.
I think it gets, this whole thing about bike lanes and all that stuff gets conflated. It was the original ideas back then, and that I continue to hold to, are transportation corridors. Okay? There was discussions way back then about if it's in a transportation corridor, multimodal is supported. Where we got off into the weeds is when it was something other than Pikes Peak Greenway, and we started talking with the renewal about stuff that's essentially Parks and Rec responsibility. That's a past issue. If it's, so it's not opposing on-street or in multimodal transportation in any way, shape, or form. This was actually a discussion about the reduction of was it properly presented, vetted, discussed before the invoice was submitted and paid. That was the intent. Now, I agree, it's not clear, it's not good, but I like the intent, but I think it needs to be reworked.
And one last further question. I'm assuming when I'm doing a traffic study on what to do with the street, that's fair game. What comes out of that answer and what we construct needs to come to you, but the traffic study itself could look at any number of items. Are we okay on traffic studies?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
dealing with the difference. This was the result of a invoice that was questionable.
Okay.
Usage of funds. And the reason the policy came up is that you basically ask before you invoice us.
Mr. Chair, you had identified a couple of us to be able to make comments. Can we?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Kathleen, you said at one point a few minutes ago that these decisions that's why we have engineers
Yes.
to do this. But you're spending our money.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why you come to us.
No, and I think the
talk about
decision
it.
is this money well spent, but I would hate to see something be re-engineered
Sure,
via committee.
and I understand that.
That's never a good thing.
This policy doesn't say you can't do anything.
That's right.
It doesn't say that. It just says that needs to be part of the approval when you go to the board.
That's right.
So I don't see any problem with the board.
And I think I have
having
clear
that.
direction, as far as I'm concerned, that this works for me, that studies, no, I will proceed with studies and then we'll see what they say and make a decision on them. Maintenance, when we discuss what streets we're going to repave, I like the ones that have a lane reduction to put a bike lane in. Those usually are not controversial. And just a warning, if you see a bike lane go in and you're bursting mad, remember, we do things with other money as well. Okay?
Okay, Reb?
Basically, as I understand it, they've asked for about $73,000 to quote study and then do it themselves. I would assume the money to do it would be under maintenance. We have no control over the maintenance. The fact that they overlooked a currently poorly worded policy gives cause or rise for the staff to question it.
Reword it.
I don't think there should be any reason that the PPRTA, how do you pay for consulting for maintenance?
Yeah.
I didn't take the consulting is not out of maintenance. The consulting contract was out of my pool for traffic studies.
So it is a capital project.
It was out of a capital program category.
Yeah.
It needs to be talked about.
All right. So the takeaway from this is, sorry, didn't know about the policy, didn't remember. We'll try to come forward and be forth next time.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to recommend anything to the board?
Yes, I would like to recommend that somebody's familiar with this and/or the minutes of this meeting, add something to this thing so that it says the intent of the policy, so that it's clear, because it's certainly not clear.
Okay, we can do that because I too was at the meeting and I was also involved with the whole process and it was a personal prejudice against road dining. It hadn't been tried and they just assumed it wouldn't work. But yeah, I think if we can clarify, maybe we'll bring back some clarifications so that.
I'd recommend sharing those with Rick and we put something up.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe next month we can submit a recommendation to the board
For rewording.
rewording and clarification of the policy.
Then I'd request a motion and second to postpone.
So, okay.
Motion to table this pending final approval next month with the wording of policy 26 revisions.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good discussion. Okay, and administrative actions and report. Report us recent board actions. Any questions on that? Any comments? Okay. Annual report to the CAC activities of the board. You should have all received a copy of this. I have no pride of authorship. If somebody wants to change to there, I don't care. And so, but the important thing is this: does this represent the consensus of the board that this is a summary of our activities for the year?
I'm assuming the red line was the updated one.
Yeah, Tom had some.
Yes, Tom Viersbuzz, I used his additions to prepare the red line that I handed out, so you can do a quick review.
Thanks.
So if you like the red line version, everybody, just consensus, we don't have to vote on this thing, do we?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, because it's
yeah, okay. All right, Joan?
Yeah, I think the red line version is fine.
You ready? Reb?
Changes.
I'd like to change the word on the second page. Third line down from
Can't hear you.
Yes.
The only reason for that is the sensitivities of it have something to do with anything personal with me.
Oh,
What?
Task very, Carla, yeah. Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Staff field review report.
Information only. Be glad to take any questions.
Any questions for Rick? Agenda topics for next meeting. So we got two that we shifted based
Yes.
on the deferral.
Yes.
Any communications?
There is a January 24th meeting up at the 21C Library for I-25 being put on, I believe, by CDOT.
Yes.
Pretty clear that we need to get involved with that.
Yes. Show your support. Show your support.
What day is that again, please?
Any other communications anybody wants to put up, Rip?
There is a meeting on the 25th. There is a meeting on the 25th for HAC. I will see if I can get members of CAC included in it.
With CDOT on I-25?
No. It's El Paso County HAC. We're having a discussion about, in a work session,
I don't know what that's.
on fuel tax, how to,
Wait a minute, we're not meeting on the 18th?
young lady, I've gotten 4 messages this afternoon. I think
Okay.
the 25th.
Quick question for Rick.
Well,
You didn't bring your shovel with you?
No, that starts at 10 o'clock.
so you're saying,
All right, adjourn. Tom?
What's the essence of this document?
Oh, the essence of this document. Tom, the,
2012.
that was,
What's it for?
that was a 2012 project list that went into the ballot, I believe.
With the 75% and then
No, that's
150%
not true.
inflation?
That's not true. It's not on the budget. It is what they used to make the A list. They guessed, we want to build Tom, but we don't know what it's going to be, but it's from A to B and it's X to Y. They
This-
used a dartboard on something.
This was part of the reauthorization work.
Right.
Yes.
And we used a 75%, 150% as when they were spitballing numbers.
Anybody wants?
It's the
Mimi?
list of projects that went into the ballot
Yeah.
with price tags,
You have
but
more
the
in your
costs were not listed in the ballot. So they are the baseline costs above which, when new costs come in with inflation,
Sure.
gives you the delta between the 2012 estimates
You want to
and
put-
current
get it down
estimates, where we are at current,
All kinds of-
from which you can ask questions. No,
Somebody asking
they were,
people down at
they were
downtown. I
on
get
the
them
board
to Marion-
agenda
Marion House.
in August or September of 12. They were not
Call
on the
down there
ballot.
and ask them.
No.
Have some of those.
Well, they could have been, but they weren't.
Thousands.
Sure.
I see the car. That's ridiculous. I was amazed I got.
Stuck with too many Springs rescue.
oh, yeah, they'd be a good one.